Welcome back, everyone. We are running a little bit late on this session, so we have about 5 presentations. So we'll give each presenter about 25 minutes so that we allow even time to ask a few questions. I will get the ball rolling so that I sit down after this and be able to the question. So, exporting from Eswatini, a case study of green pepper. So, presented by Tuna Kinenza from Namport. So we chose green pepper as our product. Please click on to the next one. So not moving. So we did a scenario where we received our order from DW Fresh, and they want green pepper, Jupiter variety, 46 tons, shipped over two months in February, March 2022. We were told we should bring that in 2 consignments or 2 shipments. So the supply agreement was signed 20 August 2021. That was when the contract was signed. Are you able to move the slides on the laptop? Okay. Just bear with us. A little hiccup on internet. It's not getting. Just stick there. Welcome back, Tim. We are good to go. I hope everyone, even those online, can see what's on the screen. So the outline of this case study is that we received an order from DW Fresh. They wanted green pepper of the Jupiter variety, 46 tons over 2 months, February to March, 22 over 2 shipments. The contract was signed 20 August 2021. So we're moving on to the next one. So the first thing that comes to the producer or the person who will send that, what are the things that I need to do for the product? Before you start thinking documents and everything, the product itself. So what we jumped onto is all the compliances that will allow the product to move to South Africa. So you must have global. We checked if we're global, where we'll be producing. Global gap, HACCP monitoring and compliance, produce inspection is done, farmer trainings in our case, because the way we come up with our produce is we aggregate from outgrowers. So even those farmers which you will give the production program, they have to be certified. So customer complaints and monitoring, those are the things that we look at, that how much have people complained about this farmer when he produces produce. So we go through all, then the produce specification. Because if they say we want, usually importers will tell you, we want Jupiter shaped around this weight and everything. So these things for you as a producer or the person who will ship the thing, the produce, you must know this thing even in your sleep, that they want so much. This is how they want it packed. So first we go through that. Then let's continue to the next slide. Then we're thinking, okay, now if when we're having the produce, what are the Incoterms? How will they pay us? So we opted for cash in advance. Cash in advance, but part payment, because if, from experience, if we say give us all the money in advance, the buyer will be skeptical. We also need to cover our basic cost for this production. So we want 30% deposit once product has been stored in our pack house ready for shipment. At that stage, if that 30% does not come through, we still have an option of selling to alternative market because the product is still with us. A pro forma invoice will be generated and sent to DW Fresh. So we're expecting, if the produce is 20,000 US dollars, we're expecting 6,000 US to be deposited in Namport account. And we want a POP that will check against that the 6,000 US has been. We can allow the buyer to come and do a pre-inspection personally on site to say, yes, I've seen, this is what I'm paying for. Or we can do a virtual presentation to him to say, here is the produce is sitting in a storeroom ready to be shipped. So where is our 30% payment? Let's move on. Next slide, please. Okay. So the Incoterm, it's a FCA, then DW Fresh Pretoria, Incoterms 2010. So Namport will hire a courier to deliver 2 loads of 23 tons in 3 weeks interval. So both of us should know that the consignment is coming in 2 shipments, 23 ton, then 3 weeks later, there's another 23 tons. The documentation that is required will, because there are 2 shipments, we will need 2 Department of Agriculture and Forestry and the South African side. They need an inspectorate permit due. You pay, it's currently is 480 Emalanga, so times 2 of that, then that equates to 70 US dollars. Then there's an excise charge, which is 360 Emalanga, and then you'll multiply by 2 because 2 trips, yeah, 52 US. Then there's the phyto permit. Now from Eswatini to say the crop or the produce is clean, it's been inspected. Fortunately, at the moment, it's still free in Eswatini. Get it from the research department at Malkens. Then the freight cost, because it's usually two-way trips are cheaper. You'll find that a 2-way trip will be around 11 or 12, but a 1-way will be closer to the 2-way. So in our case, because it's a 1-way, it's 850. But why we decided on that Incoterm, we looked at the opportunities which we have as a company. We've got trucks going to South Africa to buy stuff which Danport needs. So the cost will be cushioned, that the truck that will be going there will come back with our stuff. So that is the opportunity, because if you had given the cost of rate to, you wouldn't enjoy the so that's why we went for FCA. So, but still you have to calculate the cost of the single trip. So that came to 17,000 Emalangen, which translate to 1,214 US dollars. So in all, our shipment cost will cost us 18,000. 707 Emalangen and 92 cents. So maybe then for budgeting, you will then put it at 25,000, because for any eventualities that you have in thought of, you must have that cushion to say, if I'm selling, I'll have to have a safety net. But if everything goes according, I'll be using 18,000 Emalangen for this. So that is the total. Can we move to the next one? Then the timeline. This is just a simple timeline. It gives the indicative. So August 20, we get the contract signed. Then if you look at that, you don't have September. In our product and our way, in the way the horticulture industry is set up in Swaziland, you have to have a month. That month in between, you preserve it for cajoling your outgrowers, the farmers. You have to really convince them that let's go export. You will need to buy these expensive seeds so that you'll get this money. It's not your normal day-to-day planting. So that September is for mobilizing the farmers. Then October, you put your production schedule. You'll need about 3 months. But you know that the shipments have to be 2 months following each other. So you'll stretch your production to about 4 months. The other one will overlap the other one, so that by the time you start harvesting for the first shipment, the other one is getting ready for the second shipment. So that is why you have about 4 months, like now overlapping harvest and packing. So shipping paperwork, the thing with this product, you have to make the paperwork as close as possible to the shipping date, because you really have to be exact that I'll have green paper packed like this in boxes or in plastic bags, so that when they open the truck, they find exactly what you have written. So making a paperwork well in advance may be a problem, because when you find that you don't have maybe the cartons that you were anticipating or the bags, now you have to change. So once you are sure of how you'll pack, then you make the paperwork. Usually it doesn't take long for people who are already in the industry. So I will give it 4 days. That's why if your January starts on 1, by the 4th, you should have your papers. Then the following day, you ship, or the evening of that day where you get the final paper, you ship. After you get the down payment, the deposit in your bank account, then you ship. Then you look for maybe 2 weeks to January 30 to get your balance payment. Then you plan for the next shipment, and then another 2 weeks you get your. That is how the timeline. So from August 20, you eventually finish the order in February 28. Can we move to the next one? Barriers. There is something which, when you are looking at it, you think maybe it's a systemic exclusion of, every country protects its own. Sometimes they bring regulations which you see that this one cannot be attained by anyone. So first, there was for this crop that we're talking about, there was a requirement that from now on, all the peppers that will be getting into South Africa, they have to have no seeds inside. If you open the plant, there should be. So That's a regulation, that's a requirement. And how much is the seed? That will give you a paper that does not have seeds inside. I was talking to a seed producer just about last week. Each seed, not the packet, each seed is about 90 emalangen. So if you need 6,000 plants for a hectare, you can do the math, how much the cost of the seed will be. So it means if you need 6,000, it will be times 90. So the price is will just put you out of that order and you have to forget. So our government, they negotiated that, they argued it's too expensive. They said, okay, we're revoking that one. But now they've brought another one. They said all paper coming in should be packed in 1 kg clear plastic bags. Your customers, do they want you to pack them in 1 kg clear plastic bag? No. They want it packed in boxes. They want to pack in 10 kgs. So now you can't achieve your customer specification because of the regulations of import. So it becomes, even if you agree with the customer for that to comply, but it becomes expensive for you because now you'll have to have 1 kg for 46 tons. You can imagine how many plastic bags you. So those are when it comes to this product that we looked at, that needs to be looked at. Again, the government will have to go back and try to negotiate around the packaging. Because previously, we were putting it in boxes. It was okay to go. 10 kg bags, it was okay to go. But now, it has to be in 1 kg boxes. So those are the barriers to some of this. So I think that my presentation stops there. Can you go to the last one? Thank you. Yeah. Now I take on the other court as a moderator. Or any questions or any comments on the presentation?
Mr. Ganenza?
No, I think people. Or any? Can you check the group? Can you check the online group?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the slides. I think there's an internet problem. Thank you very much. I mean, you've covered a lot of what we've done yesterday. So that's great. And I think your perspective, especially from the practical side, is important in advising, your colleagues there as well. I just have a question for your Incoterm. I think you used FCA. Was the address Pretoria?
Yes, I used FCA Pretoria.
Okay, so just a reminder that when you're using FCA, you need to use the origin country. Okay, so if it's coming out of Swaziland or Eswatini, if it's coming out of Matsapa, then you use FCA Matsapa or the specific address there. So for the rest of you as well, I think just keep that as a reminder. When the Incoterm is based, in the origin country, make sure that the delivery point is that origin. So depending on the courier company or the transport company you would use, it would be when it was handed over to that transport company. So when you deliver it to them, you've done your delivery itself. But thank you very much. It's very interesting what you've shared, and I appreciate the effort that you made in it. You can move on to the next, or if there's any other questions from those who are live there.
Okay, just on your last comment, Mary. What if I've got my own transport and I'm driving the product to DW Fresh site in Pretoria? Couldn't the place be Pretoria?
Okay, it depends because if it's FCA, right? your buyer will actually have to arrange the transport. And if they arrange it, let's just say with your transport company, I don't know whether you have your transport company as a separate company or it's within your whole company itself where you just have trucks and you use them. So that might get a bit complicated because then as a transport company, and let's just say you did use FCA, but the buyer has used your transport company, you will still need to have insurance from the transport side. If anything happens, you still need to have, your vehicles insured and the cargo that you're carrying insured, just in case there are any issues.
Okay, thank you. I think, yeah, my company is it's exactly in that complex scenario where we own the trucks as part of the business. They are insured together with the consignment. So the buyer actually, the handover would actually happen on the buyer's side. So
okay, then I suggest you use DAP, which is delivered at place.
okay.
Are you doing the import clearance for them?
Yes.
Then it's DDP. Okay, because if you are doing the import clearance for them, then just use DDP because you're doing everything and you're just working on their behalf to do the clearance and all of that, which is fine because if you have the experience and it works for you and it works for your customer, then it's fine and you get paid on time and all of that, then it's perfect. You've got the resources to do it. Then your Incoterm would be DDP if you are doing the import clearance. So DDP is the only one where the seller does the import clearance. Okay, so that is the Incoterm you'd use in that case.
Okay.
And your address will be the one where you're delivering it to in Pretoria. So it will be DDP, whatever in Pretoria. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I think, yeah, this helps a lot because we realize that any slight change in the setup of the logistics, it's likely to change even the Incoterm that we are using. So
yes, yeah, thank you for noting that.
Okay, are we ready with the next presentation? Okay, the team is just setting up the next presentation. I think as a rule, while we are having this presentation, you should be also setting up the next one so that we do not have this numerous gaps. Okay, welcome team again. We are ready to go with the second presentation. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Morning once again. It's a presentation on exportation of goat meat or goat carcass from Eswatini to South Africa, Mpumalanga, prepared by Tobile, Sbongile, and Sihle. The first question was you're required to select a payment method and an Incoterm. The product is called Kakas. And our payment method, we decided on a letter of credit because we are just started our company, especially in export. The basis with that it is more secured and it minimizes the risk for us as newcomers into the export industry. The Incoterm, we looked at EXW Works. We are transferring the responsibility to the seller immediately if the goods are made available in our premises. So the seller will be responsible for insurance, for transport and export and clearance packaging. On the next slide, how we calculate customs duties. We will advise the buyer that from the EX Works delivery terms, he is expected to pay at cost, which is the 15% of the 20,000 USD. And it will depend on the legislation of South Africa. Some revenue authorities, they charge on CIF, which is cost, insurance and freight, meaning that in case he has to insure and acquire freight from our premises to the border, the South African Revenue Service will collect VAT on the cost of the goods, which is the 20,000 plus insurance and freight. No duties would be paid, but only VAT. If we attach, excuse me, if we attach the certificate of origin. What is expected from us as a seller? We have to prepare the commercial invoice. We have to prepare export declaration or lodge it with the Eswatini Revenue Authority, and we have to prepare inspection document from the Ministry of Health. Those are the health inspectors who are inspecting the carcass, if it's hygienely prepared and fit for consumption. And we also have to prepare a certificate of origin, which will attest that the goat carcass was born and bred in Eswatini. We expect the buyer to obtain a commercial invoice from us, import permit from South African Veterinary, if necessary. We're not quite sure, but that was our guess. Then custom declaration for export, transport, and insurance. The next slide, please. The third question was create the basic timeline from court to delivery. Our timeline events starting from receiving the inquiry, screening the potential buyer, which we expect to take 2 days, provide pro forma invoice, which would take 1 day, finalize the sale 2 days. But in total, we've compressed all these activities to take about 26 days. Number 5 will be the drawing up of contract, which we assume it will take 3 days, drawing up of delivery terms, 2 days currency determination, since it is pegged at 1-to-1, so I think 1 day will be enough. The next slide, please. Insurance, export clearance 4 days, electronic export information 1 day, payment terms 5 days, because we've decided on the letter of credit, and we assume that both banks, the buyer's bank and our bank, will be engaged in a lot of paperwork and the verification of information that is provided by both parties, and ensuring that the buyer has that money to pay for the goat carcasses. And we also have to prepare a goods and shipping document, which I assume will take 5 days. That will involve the commercial invoice, packaging list, certificate of origin, shipper's letter of instruction, just to name those. And we will also once again be expected to run a screening to ensure that that buyer is still there and has not disappeared, which we assume will take 3 days, 2 days. Yeah, in totality, the timeline will be 26 days. On the last one, the list, the type of barriers, since there will be inspections from the Ministry of Health Inspector to check hygienic purposes, and the certification of origin, since it will be our first time to export meat from Eswatini to South Africa, we assume that the Revenue Authority will want to make an inspection to confirm if we adhere to the rules of origin, to the rules of origins provisions, and I think those will be the barriers. I think it will take a little bit of time. And the mode of transport by road, the roadblocks all the way from Eswatini to Mpumalanga, Emelo, we anticipate that our mode of transport will be inspected, since we are, I think, a medium risk, because it's our first time to export goods to South Africa, especially that meat. The SARS will want to check or verify if indeed we are exporting goat meat for future purposes, so that we may be put into the green lane for export purposes. Confirmation of documents by the bank, I think that will be another barrier, because the banks are expected to perform due diligence in their function, which will include the confirmation of information, having all the necessary documents, and availability of funds in the bank buyer's account. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That has been excellent. At this moment, I invite the group both here for comments and questions on the last presentation that we just had.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ngabinze and your team, for the presentation. Maybe just to request for further clarity. I think the process was clear in terms of how you intend to undertake it, especially including the timelines. But maybe mine is why do we keep on including the certificate of origin? Because we are exporting to Mpumalanga, isn't it? Which is South Africa. So we are in a customs union, so you don't need a certificate of origin. You only need it when you are in an FTA. So maybe just to have an appreciation on that one. I will assume that perhaps because the mere fact that it's not required does not mean it will never be. South Africa can say, okay, I want SRA to actually trace, because we are exporting, was it goats? Yeah, so they want to trace. If it's beef, it's a goat meat, they want to trace whether it was born and raised. So then they are going to say, give us a certificate of origin. And for that matter, it's not any certificate, it has to be the general certificate of origin. So maybe just to get your thoughts on that one. And then maybe also on the issue of NTBs, I think you stated going to Mpumalanga, a roadblock. So what does it translate to? Because an NTB should translate to delays in time and then cost implications. So what does it say? When you get to the roadblock, is the truck delayed? Do they inspect it? Does it affect the initial contract that you sign? Let's say, for instance, it's detained for a day. So it means it's no longer 26 days, it's 27 days. Maybe the last one, which I'll request Mary to clarify on. We have to bring a differentiation between NTBs and NTMs. The general inspections, to my understanding, that she said needs to be undertaken, which you have alluded to, those are general measures that have to be undertaken anyway. But an NTB will be where now SRA is supposed to go and inspect your premises and take 1 day, but then they now take 3 days. The 1 day is a necessary measure that was agreed by the government that it needs to be taken. But if now they take 3 days, then it's now a non-tariff barrier to trade. So maybe Mary can also clarify on that one so that we can, have that appreciation. If the inspected documents, that's a necessary measure that needs to be undertaken. But if it's not a requirement, for instance, you need an F178 form. If it's not a requirement and you are now forced to do it, then it means it is becoming now a non-tariff barrier to trade, which is going to trigger a cost and also delays in time. So maybe I thought maybe I should clarify on that one and perhaps get the view of the facilitator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mnisi. On the issue of certificate of origin, yes, indeed, we are in SACCO. We are moving goods from Eswatini to a SACCO member state, which we are party to as a country. The general expectation is that we do not need a certificate of origin. But since I've mentioned earlier in the presentation that it is our first time to export goods from Eswatini to South Africa, and the part of the requirement is for the Revenue Authority to inspect our premises to ascertain whether these goods are not brought in from Mozambique, they are not brought in from Malawi, they're not brought in from Uganda, or to name a few countries, into Swaziland for slaughter, then sell to South Africa. We have to prepare every document that can be a barrier for us to trade with South Africa. So that's pushing us to prepare the certificate of origin at the beginning, because we are the first time exporter in our trade. I think that would be the main reason for us to acquire a certificate of origin if necessary. We know, as you've mentioned, that South Africa maybe in 2 years' time will send a team, or will ask the SRA to go again to inspect if either we are still producing those goods in our farm. That will be when maybe they will make those necessary checks to confirm if this goat meat is really produced in Eswatini according to the provisions of the COO. On the second one, we are living in COVID times. There are roadblocks all over in Eswatini and even outside Eswatini. The institutions or the government institutions checking whether we are vaccinated. We have used the passports to cross over to South Africa. They are also checking for roadworthiness of vehicles. We assume those can be other barriers that can hinder our delivery time. We think maybe if from here maybe to MLO, if you can find maybe about 4 or 5 roadblocks, that would be a challenge for us as a company. So we expect to find ways in which we can mitigate those challenges so that we cannot be found wandering outside the contract in terms of delivery times.
Thank you so much for the response. I think it has been well attended to. Can I give Mary to have a say on the NTBs versus NTM issue that was raised? Mary?
Thank you for the question. I think before we go into NTBs, NTMs, I think firstly, you know, for those who are not aware, NTMs are non-tariff measures. Okay, so these are broken down into SPS and TBT. SPS is normally your there to protect human, animal, and plant life. So those measures are, that is why you'd have your phytosanitary certificate to make sure that the goods that you're exporting are in good order, especially agriculturally, or you'll need your animal certificates and so on. Then you've got your TBT, where you've got your, you know, your quality assessments and so on. And as the gentleman alluded to, these NTMs can become NTBs because yes, you may need to have all of these measures. You need to have all of these things in place and processes in place. But they also tend to harm or to delay the shipments. And sometimes, you know, some of these organizations take too much of time to process it. They become very, very bureaucratic. The regulations sometimes are not clear enough. So it does end up becoming a non-tariff barrier in some cases, not in all. So that is why it's important as exporters that you need to understand what measures are for the product that you're exporting. And I didn't go into details with NTMs and NTBs because I think at this level, you know, if you're not a policy special, an international trade policy specialist, it's of no use to you. All you need to know is practically, if you want to export goats from Eswatini, where do you go and what do you need to do, right? And these are the things that may affect you. And yes, yes, we have regulations like the roadblocks, things that need to be checked, and they do delay it. And there are some issues where it could be take 10 minutes to check something, but you're waiting a full day. There's lots of issues that happens at the different borders between South Africa and the surrounding countries. And these are issues that do affect trade, because you may have a delivery date that you need to deliver to your client in South Africa, and any delays getting there affects your business. So they may not be specifically trade barriers themselves or known as trade barriers, but they do affect trade. So that is why we need to consider all of these things. So as exporters, you are aware that these are the processes that may affect you, whether or not it is part of trade policy or just part of the normal government regulations. They do affect your business. So it's good to be aware of it, and it's good to understand it. So when you are creating your timelines, or when you are telling your customer, this is when I can deliver. Yeah, if your customer says, now I want delivery on Monday, because you are in Eswatini, it takes, what, 7 hours to drive from Matsapa to Durban. So if I know that and I say I want delivery on Monday, you can always come back to me and say, well, we still need to get these certifications ready, and this is how long it takes. And yes, there are some, you know, stops or on the road that we need to think about. So I cannot deliver on Monday. The earliest feasible day would be Friday. So we have taken all of these things into consideration. So that is why I've asked you to look at the barriers, not to fully understand the barriers itself or where it comes from, but to be able to use it and understand your timelines from there. Because if you're aware of it, then you can make changes and you can advise your client. So when your client gets their product on Friday and it's on time, they'll be happy with the service, as opposed to you agreeing for Monday and not realizing that there are all these delays. Okay, so that, I think, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Mary. That was quite insightful. And do we have any other question in relation to the last presentation? Going once, going twice, and gone. Thank you, guys. Our time is 10:30. What we'll do, we'll take a tea break so that the 3 presentations will follow under the next segment of our program. Fortunately, we have a discussion 30 minutes there, so I'm counting on that to give us a cushion for the third presentation. So let's have tea, and for us who are here, we'll get to ask questions. I had one that, where will he get the gold? Is he counting on Tammy to be the supplier? So let's go to a tea break, good people. We'll be back. Please keep time. According to my program, we should be back at 10 minutes to 11. Thank you. Welcome back. Our time is 10 to 11. I hope everyone is refreshed and has got something to eat. We're moving on with our presentations. We get into the second part of the presentations. We will look at exporting leather products to buyer in South Africa. This has been put up by gentlemen, Nisi from APA and Zotam Kabela from Kodak. Let's give them the platform so that see what they came up with.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen, and a good morning to those that are following online. So as we have been introduced, we are going to make a presentation on exporting leather products to South Africa as per the assignment. So we put this one together with my colleague, stakeholder from Kodak, and also a member of the Leather Crafters Association. So I'm sure you can understand why we even picked the product being leather to export it to South Africa. So this is how we've structured our presentation. Obviously, it tends to perhaps differ in terms of format, maybe from others, but I think the detail we can be able to pick, what we are trying to do. Guided by the 20,000 US dollars, we thought that maybe that should be equivalent to exporting about 1,000 leather handbags, which will be delivered to a buyer in Gauteng, South Africa. The leather is made from processed wet blue leather imported from India. It takes about 5 days to import by air. So that is the product that we are exporting. And then the terms of contract, the parties that are involved. The buyer is Extreme Fashions, who sells in high-end shops in RSA, such as Truett's. And then the seller is Melanie Leather, an upcoming SME making leather products from imported leather fabric. The contract is signed for 50 days delivery, and the terms have been made to be binding and to a point that they push most of the risk to the buyer, because Melanie is an upcoming SME. She has just received a big order. So really, in terms of taking some of the risk, we thought that maybe it needs to be pushed, to the buyer. So the processes that needs to be undertaken, just like what the others were saying, is the documentation process, where we will need to prepare the packing list, the invoice. We have also included, I think based on our understanding of the process, the F178 form, given that the exports are over 50,000, which you normally get from Central Bank. But I think, as Mary said, in some of these things, the detail you learn when you're in the business. I'm including this one because it's one of the things that I think needs to be included in the documentation. And then, like I raised earlier, I've added the general certificate of origin, because for this product, for textile and apparel, at some point, South Africa was saying that they need that traceability to avoid imports coming in from other countries and then transiting to South Africa. So they need SRA to sign it to ensure that the goods originate from Eswatini. Otherwise, as I stated, in general, you don't need a certificate of origin. There is this document, it's the certificate, it's the controlling. I'm trying to get the name for this. CITES. Can someone please? It's a certificate that you get from environmental authority, I assume, because of the nature of the product. It could be maybe from the vet. I think we are not sure. We stand to be guided because of the nature of the product. It's leather, so it needs to be controlled. So they need to do that inspection to actually check the state of the leather, sorry, to check if there is nothing that can harm the environment, harmful to humans and to animals. But again, we stand to be corrected. Yes. No, thank you very much, Ngavins. Yeah, so that's what we are assuming. And the inspection is being done by our environmental authority because they have a mutual agreement with their counterparts in South Africa. So meaning whatever certificates they issue, South Africa will accept. And then the other certificate will be the SAD 500 export bill, which we all know. The total cost for this shipment, we have broken it down to as follows. We have given the 20,000, of which when you multiply it by 15, you get 307,400 malangeni. So the breakdown is as follows. The ex-works, which is production, packaging, labeling, to documentation, it's gonna be 300,000 emalangeni. Sorry, not including documentation, ending up to labeling. And then the origin charges, which are looking at transport, warehousing, and documentation, it's gonna be 5,000. Transport by interfreight, by a road straight to the warehouse of the buyer in South Africa, which will also cover the warehousing of 500 emalangeni and then preparing the documentation. So we'll give all of this to interfreight to process. The insurance that was signed in the contract to cover the product is 1,400 emalangeni. We are making assumptions again. And then the duties payable, we said it's going to be 15% of 307,400, which translates to 46,100. So maybe we will be guided in terms of whether you calculated CIF or FOB. I think that one, maybe Mary can come in and maybe guide us on that one. But this is what we were able to come up with. Then now coming to the contract, highlighted in yellow again, we said it's ex-works because this is the first time we are exporting such a big order. And so we are trying to reduce the risk, from the seller and pushing it to the buyer. To a point that we said for payments, the buyer will make 70% cash in advance payment, which will be used to allow the seller to import and process and make the products, and also cover certain aspects of the shipment on behalf of the buyer. And then 30% will be paid 7 days after delivery of the goods, which will allow the buyer to inspect the products for accuracy and quality. This again is stipulated in the contract. So the timelines, we said from production, X-Works, we said production, packaging, labeling, 30 days, and then preparing the contract, you know, signing the contract, taking it back to the buyer, having him signing it, and then looking into it and all of that, making sure it's tight. We thought 5 days will do. The documentation process, going to the bank to get the Forex form, SAD 500 invoice, and then the certificate of origin. We said 3 days will do to do that. And then transport and customs clearance, 3 days. Delivery and inspection by buyer. So we're giving the buyer 6 days to actually look at the products, make sure everything is in order. And then payment of the balance is 3 days after delivery and inspection. So that's how we looked at the timeline, hence we're able to come up with the 50 days. And then now coming to the issue of NTVs, like I stated earlier, we tried to make a differentiation in terms of what it is and looking at the fact that for it to be an NTB, it has to bring an element of delay in the shipment or even increase the cost, you know, outside of the non-tariff measures, as Mary discussed earlier. They are necessary, they are there, but once you tend to maybe go overboard, instead of taking 1 day, you take 3 days, then it becomes an NTB. So in country, we thought maybe we should not only focus at the border. When you are getting the certificates of origin, SRA will say, no, I think I need to do another inspection. How can you get such a big order? Melanie, are you sure that the handbags were not imported from China and they are now being transshipped to South Africa? This is despite the fact that you are already registered with SRA. Once you are registered to get the certificate of origin, then it means they don't need to do inspections whenever you are doing the shipment. So, but in this case, they are saying, no, assess and see, really, are we dealing with proper products that have been produced? Remember, we imported the leather, we produced, and then now we are shipping. So when they do this inspection, it delays by 1 day. And then SRA states that a general certificate of origin will be needed despite being in a customs union. I think I've explained this one. It can be, a country can impose, even though we are in a customs, to say that for traceability aspect, can we also confirm that there is no transshipment that is happening here? And then environmental authority delays by 1 day to issue the, what you call it, this CITES due to COVID-19. They are working from home. So these are barriers that can happen before you actually ship the product. And then at the border, you get there, you find out Asikuda is down. Asikuda is used to fast track the process. So you find that maybe you have to spend the night adding 1 day, and then the interfreight will tell you that you have to pay 400 Malangeni extra for that. When you try to enter South Africa, South Africa rejects the site test by environmental authority. Maybe the officer will say, no, there's no mutual recognition. We would rather have the environmental authority in South Africa being the one that maybe approves the whole thing. But then when you talk to the authorities, you find that maybe you are lucky. You talk to agriculture and you call the environmental authority, and then they tell you that no, it's okay. we recognize a certificate that is issued by the environmental authority in Eswatini. So that means you were lucky, there were not delays, maybe let's just say an hour or two, which is not much, so you are able to go. Along the way to Johannesburg, the truck is stopped by police, and upon realizing that you are shipping 1,000 handbags, they also think that maybe the products were being transshipped. You imported them from China, brought them here from Asia. Let's not be specific. You bring them to Eswatini, and then now you are shipping them to South Africa. Maybe the police will call the authorities and then get the confirmation that everything is in order, but then decides to frustrate you for maybe, let's just say, to get a pizza. So the driver, realizing that everything is in order, then decides to offer a bribe of 200 to expedite the process, and he is released, and then the goods are taken to South Africa. So in conclusion, I will say the target delivery and payment was set for 50 days, but then now when you add the NTBs, we are now getting 52 days. The total cost was supposed to be 353,000, but when you add the bribe, the 400 for extra day, now it becomes more by 600. So I don't know what happens to the contract now, because things are now, so it means there is a clause there where you have to review and all of that if these things happen. But I think we stand to be guided. So this is how we attempted the presentation, and we can take questions from here, guidance, clarifications, and all of that. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. Yes, it's quite insightful and articulate. From our colleagues online and those who are here in the gathering, it's time for questions and comments.
Mr. Kadinza, if I can start.
Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mnisi, for your presentation. My apologies. I didn't realize it was you earlier. You know, Mr. Mnisi was one of the first people I interviewed for the Regional Cross-Border Toolkit, because we did surveys with different people within the countries. So he was one of the people who actually assisted with mentioning the barriers to trade and the issues faced in Eswatini. So this was before we even put together the Regional Cross-Border Trade Toolkit. So it was a while ago. Thank you for your very, very informative presentation. I'm truly impressed actually with the amount of information you put in there and the things that you considered. Just a note on the, I think it's CITES or CITES certificate. I'm not sure how it's pronounced either, but it's for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. So basically it's a certificate stating that you are not trading in endangered species, whether it's animals or it's plants. So this is a certificate that's needed, especially, you know, with medicinal plants and those sort of commodities and cosmetics and so on. And yes, it is required with animals, and it would, in some cases, be required with leather products. And just remember, with imports of leather products into South Africa, you may need an import permit, depending how processed the products are. But well done on the presentation. I think you also asked about the CIF and FOB. I know a lot of buyers and sellers use CIF and FOB, but these are mainly for these Incoterms are mainly for goods going by sea or by river. So if it's over land, like between Eswatini and South Africa, then you would have to use the Incoterms that's used for any mode. So for 2020, there's, I think, 11 Incoterms, 4 of which are for sea only, and the other 7 are for any mode of transport. So you'd have to choose from the other 7. It wouldn't be advisable to use FOB and CIF because the cargo is not going onto a ship. If it is, then yes, go ahead and use it. But you do not want to have problems later on because, with FOB and with CIF, the risk passes when it's on board the vessel. Now, if there is no vessel involved, where does the risk really pass? So if you have any issues later on, you may have a lot of problems. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are trading, even the logistics companies don't even know the Incoterms very well. But as business people and exporters, it's good to understand because it's not even about the logistics companies. It's about the sellers and the buyers and where their risk passes, what you want to pay for, how much of insurance you want to pay, where your responsibility ends and so on. So it's very, very important that you use the correct Incoterm. So if there is an issue later on, you do not have a serious problem. Even if something goes wrong with your shipment, you'll know who is supposed to have that insurance in place and so on. But overall, well done. It was a very, very informative presentation, and thank you.
Thank you for that comment and take on that, Mary. I agree with you. The presentation was quite good. The team so far is performing well. So are we having any questions or comment for the group? Or the last group did so well because it's an inside job. The group leaders already inside. So if in the absence of questions, I don't see anyone even online. Can I just make a reminder to our guests online that please be part of the conversation. We will welcome you to say things and give us your take. Otherwise, going once, going twice, not going, still going, third time, fourth time, still looking for questions, gone. We move on to the next presentation. We're doing well on time. The previous group spared us some 2 minutes. So we continue to the next group. Can we have a projection? And can the group take over from here? Nomcebo from EANIDC is our next presenter. Good, somebody who's not here. So we are having a representative of the online participants. Nomcebo, are you going to project? Are you going to share with us anything?
Share.
Good afternoon, still morning. Good morning, colleagues. Morning, program director. We have sent through our presentation.
Okay.
We sent it through to Bolisile, and we will have two presenters. Mr. Menzi Bennett will present one part, and Mr. Makawe Twala will present the last part.
Good. Welcome, ENIDC team. At the venue, we do have your presentation on the screen. So I think can we check with the other people who are online that are they getting what we are seeing here?
We cannot see anything. Oh, now we can. Thank you.
Yeah. So take over in IDC team. The floor is yours. Nomcebo, you are live. Please go ahead with the presentation. Unmute. ITC team, unmute. Yes, now.
Oh, apologies. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to present. My name is Menzi Bennett. I'll be taking you through the presentation. We just followed the structure of the questions, which is question 1 was requesting us to discuss, or rather to select a payment method as well as an Incoterm. Our payment method, we preferred to take cash in advance, of which we decided that we will require a 40% upfront payment, and then a 60% remainder will be required upon satisfactory delivery of the product. Eswatini and South Africa have preferential agreements under the SACU, hence there are no restrictions on exchange regulations because we are paid on one for our currencies. Then moving on to the Incoterm, on the Incoterm, we preferred to use the DAT, which is delivered at terminal method, and the mode we chose road freight, of which it's normally a refrigerated truck, and our warehouse is in Joburg, Shoprite warehouse, and place of delivery is in Johannesburg as well. The costs as per the as per the shared document, you have the DAT plus origin charges, insurance freight, which includes origin and duties, as well as taxes. Documents that are required to process this order includes licenses for export, which is the certificate of origin, commercial invoice, packaging list, export customs clearance, permits, as well as under the controlling authority, you require some documents from the Ministry of Agriculture. The risks that are there is, risk will only pass at the place of delivery at the agreed time as per the Incoterm. Seller will require insurance up until delivery, and buyer will require insurance from that point. I will skip the cost calculation and move to our timeline, of which our timeline starts from where the buyer requests for a quotation, and we prepare, within a day, the quotation will be circulated or sent to the buyer, and then an export quote will also be prepared within a day, where we will have detailed cost, expected delivery, as well as terms, and yes, then thereafter we will prepare a pro forma invoice where the seller will have to, the buyer will have to accept, or both the buyer and the seller will have to discuss and agree on this pro forma invoice, which is expected to take almost a day. Then a commercial invoice upon agreement will be issued by the seller to the buyer, which will be prepared within a day. Apologies, colleagues, I forgot to mention that our product is banana. So then we have to prepare a packaging list within a day after this paperwork is completed, and then a DAT, which is delivery at terminal, will have to be drafted. The DAT entails a seller issues a DAT contract to the buyer, transportation documents, which will include transportation documents, certificate of origin, a phytosanitary certificate, and this is expected to take approximately 2 days. And thereafter, the seller will also commence harvesting and packaging as well as loading of the product. This is expected to take about 2 days. We know that traveling to Johannesburg would probably take a day. It would take about 5 hours from the border, but it is expected to take a day in our presentation. Then moving on to looking at the barriers of exporting banana. Banana, we all aware that it is highly perishable. There are red tapes with respect to licensing and certification, as well as border delays and restrictions, deteriorating road infrastructure, escalating fuel cost, as well as truck attacks and looting. We hope that these measures could be alleviated through improvement of freight logistics, through the cold chain, outsourcing the licensing and certification to private sector, decentralization of customs functions to exporters, as well as centralizing the clearing systems. Thank you, colleagues. I would like Mr. Makawe to take you through the cost calculation shortly.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, everyone. Okay, on the cost calculation, we have the following assumptions. We assume that we are the ones who own the transport, and then documentation and licensing cost will be $4,500. Insurance and freight is $500. Duties and taxes, it's $3,975. In calculating that, we used the FOB value, duties plus excise plus the fuel tax, and then we removed the 10% since it's within SACCO. And then to get to the total cost, we used the formula, which is DAT plus origin charges plus insurance plus the freight plus duties and taxes, which gave us $33,975. Thank you, everyone. That's all.
Thank you. And although on the cost calculation, the team online, I think they did not have the benefit of viewing those slides. I don't know if our IT would help.
The cost calculation, yes, we can.
Yeah, the calculations. Did you manage to view those?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on the screen now. Can you please go back to the Incoterm slide? I just have a comment on that. And firstly, thank you to the group for the good presentation and the actual added work of trying to do some visual stuff with the timeline. That was really good. I see that you've used DAT, which is delivered at terminal. Please remember that when you're using DAT, it's for usually a terminal handled by logistics companies or by shipping lines and so on, right? So I would rather you use DAP, which is delivered at place, which is a 2020 Incoterm. And when you have your stated as, even if you keep it as DAT Johannesburg Shoprite Warehouse, make sure you add in that it's Incoterms 2010, or if you're using DAP Johannesburg Shoprite Warehouse, you add it on as Incoterms 2020. Then, you know, it's very, very important to state which year you're using for your Incoterms. But overall, well done on your assignment and looking at the timelines. I do think you've been very positive with the timelines. I think a lot of things may take longer. And once you are actually an exporter and dealing with it, you'll realize that even the quoting stage sometimes may take a week or two by the time you are, you know, negotiating back and forth and deciding on, you know, what exactly the client wants. So this does take a bit of time, but well done on choosing the product and your Incoterms and actually putting some thought into the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that observation. Any other questions to the team that has just presented? I am looking for questions and comments.
Sorry, I just have one more comment. You know, you mentioned on your barriers that when it comes to licensing, you know, you'd prefer if it was privatized. I'm not sure for the reason for that, but I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to privatizing things that are regulated by the government, mainly because it adds costs. Remember, private companies want to make money. So when you privatize anything, the costs normally go up because they are looking at making profits. But the government is not necessarily there to make profits. So it's important to remember that whenever you are suggesting privatize, I know we're looking for smoother processes and all of that. And yes, privatizing different processes will get you, you know, your certificates a lot faster, licensing a lot faster, but it will come at an added cost. And, you know, especially with new exporters, they usually try to keep the cost down. A lot of the services offered by the government is free or at minimal cost. So that's something to think about. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, that is a very valid point, because as startup businesses, we should always look for opportunities to save on costs of doing the business. Any gain is appreciated when the time to declare profits and losses at the end of the financial year comes. So thank you. If we don't have any questions from the colleagues here, The presentation is going, NIDC is going once, going twice, gone. Now we are on to the last presentation. Is it online, Bulu? Or the person is here? Okay. But I think our network here, you'll bear with us. It's playing tricks. I've been having to rejoin the meeting countless times. So let us have the projection. Exporting tea from Eswatini to South Africa. And Dlamini will take us through the presentation. And I hope after this, we will be ready to export tea. Over to you, Tande.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Okay, so I'm exporting tea from this country to South Africa. I'm working on the presumption that I'm a registered exporter with ERS. So can we move on to the next slide? Yes. So this is the timeline from quote to delivery. It's gonna take about 18 days. So I'm first on the quotation. That's gonna take 3 days. The buyer sends an email to myself requesting for a quotation for bush tea, and I send the quotation via email within 3 days from receiving the request, and it is in pro forma format with the payment terms stipulated to be letter of credit, as well as the Incoterms being they are stipulated on the pro forma as delivery at place, delivery at place, unloaded 2020. So I'm using the 2020 Incoterms, and then the buyer hopefully responds by accepting the offer as per the stipulations. And they also begin the process of requesting the letter of credit with the bank. In terms of documentation, that's going to take 1 week. I apply for a certificate of origin, commercial. I compile the commercial invoice, the packing list. I also apply for a phyto sanitary certificate with plant protection, and begin the pre-clearance of the export with, I will use a clearing agent to do that. And once all these documents, I assume I'm gonna get them at least in 2-3 days, I will send them to the buyer in order for them to begin the process of obtaining an import permit with the Department of Trade and Industry if it's required. And then also in the pre-clearance with SARS from their side. And then after that, I will present the bank with all documents to fulfill the letter of credit requirements and terms. So this may include even the delivery because I'm delivering at their place and also unloading. So as part of the LC, you might find that a delivery note is required. So on the same day, I will deliver and unload at the place of the buyer or whatever we agreed on. Next slide. Customs duties, 0, VAT, 3,000, and the total cost, to the total cost of the export, I will add transportation, transport insurance, as I'm transporting it myself as the seller. And I'll also include costs of unloading. Right. Next slide. Possible barriers. There are possibilities that maybe the Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa issues maybe changes to packaging or labeling requirements for imported tea. So those are that's the possible barrier that I can think of that may sort of cause some delays or even cause the process to cost a bit more than it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Thandeka, for the presentation on exporting tea into South Africa. At this moment, I would welcome comments and questions from Flo and our colleagues online.
Mr. Ganinza, I think before I comment, what exactly is bush tea, Thandeka?
Let's say it's just tea.
No, I'm just curious because, you know, sometimes I know we have different plants and stuff that we use as tea, even here locally. So I was just curious to find out if there is like a specific name for it.
Okay, Mary.
I mean, we use in South Africa, I think lemongrass is referred to as bush tea. So I was just wondering if it is the same thing.
Who's that one? Somebody switch off your mic. Please check your mics on your laptops and okay. I think we're better now. Yes, because I was worried for a moment. I was worried about the phyto. If this is maybe a protected species of tea, if she's gonna get it. But any comments from the floor and from our colleagues online?
I think, Thandeka, thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. Yeah, I think one of the things that you need to look at is specifying what the product actually is, because that will, you know, you'll know what the requirements are for that product from there on. But thank you so much for your effort.
Yes, I think people are quite content. So this presentation is going once, going twice, and gone. Yeah, we had a slot for discussions, general discussions on what we have observed over the presentations of the groups, not particularly any group, the general observation. I think I will kick off this one. I think what I realized from the presentation is that when you are importing, there is quite a lot of information that you need to gather and put it in chronological order so that you've got the exact idea or the clauses of what will happen when you're actually starting the process. So it was quite an insightful assignment. I think most of us, it was the first time to do such. We haven't sat down to analyze product by product of what we are dealing with to check what is the step. I think I'm looking this as it's one of the things that we should have in booklets for our extension officers when they are being asked. At least they must have the framework to impact the knowledge to whoever is interested, that these are the steps that you will go through when you are exporting. So this forms part of a quite important paperwork or booklets which should be in our cabinet. It's good now we all store things online, but you know, especially in my field, you have guidelines for production, you have guidelines for doing that, but now the environment is challenging us to go export. These are the guidelines that we need now, together with the toolkits which we were looking at yesterday. If then we can combine with the product by product, maybe each guideline belongs to a sector like horticulture. Here are the products. If you are dealing with this, expect ABC. That would be very much informative, and the extension or the officers will be empowered, and it will be easy, and they will have confidence to tell or to guide the people who are interested in going into this. Any other observation, general observation?
Thank you very much. Maybe my observation will be to add on what you are saying, moderator, and maybe address it to the hub to say, you know, these examples, assignments that we have done, they've in a way, you know, enhanced our understanding, you know, of the document. So I don't know if it's possible that the assignments can be compiled, because Mary, I did look at the document and I did realize that it is just giving us the information without maybe examples, as maybe the moderator is also saying. So I'm not sure whether from a regional perspective, you know, having done this with other countries, you will have such examples. I noted that we're presenting on our different strengths, you know, understanding of the whole thing. Perhaps you can take the assignment and try and, you know, look at where there are gaps. Like, for instance, in my presentation, you noted that I need to include the issue of import permits. So basically what I'm saying is explaining this to a trader with examples, practical, like we have done now, which are well documented, and perhaps you have looked into them in terms of making them to a certain point to be accurate in terms of the information. I think that will really, really assist, because I can take the document and say, this is what it is. Normal, I just say, take the document and read. But if now I have an example of a product that is included, currently it's not here, then that will make easy. I don't know if maybe that can be done by the hub to a point of even including what other countries, you know, have shared in their own assignments for the same project, or just coming up with, you know, examples from your side that will guide the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment. I think the reason why I set up the assignment like this was so that you'd come up with the example. Because remember, the USA Trade Hub is closing down this project by September this year. So the document will remain as is. And that is why we are having the workshops with partners like yourselves, so that you learn how to use the toolkit. And then by creating your own examples, by doing the assignment, you are looking at, you know, what is the process? Where do I find this information on the toolkit? And then that's the information you can pass on to whoever you are dealing with, any of the exporters that you are advising, and so on. It's never going to be 100%, to be honest. You know, there's no way to give the correct advice at all times. The only time you actually know when an export has gone well is at the end of it, when it's at the customer and they're happy with the product, all the payments are through and everyone's happy, right? But then again, the next shipment, you know, the rules may change, and this happens all the time. So my point is, You know, we can try and prepare as much as possible, but it's not easy to prepare 100%. So we can start by saying to exporters, use the toolkit. This is where you find the information. And if your customer says that they want FOB, you can go back and say to them, no, we can't use FOB for South Africa. I can only use FCA and so on, right? But even the exporters themselves, they're not going to get it 100% all the time. So I'm not sure if you would like to share with each other your presentations, but that will have to be done locally. I don't know how comfortable all the presenters are with doing that. And if they are, then they can just let Bolisile know that they're happy to share their presentations. I can share my presentation, you know, from the one from yesterday, but unfortunately, I can't give permission for anybody else's presentation. So it really is up to the participants. And I think what we need to note is that this event is not just to do the toolkit, it's for, you know, the different organizations to network, to sit and talk together. You know, you have your lunch breaks, you have your tea breaks, and, you know, we'll be breaking for, well, we'll be finishing in a little while. You know, create your own WhatsApp groups, talk to each other constantly, because there's many ways, and you'll see from each other's presentations, you all bring different ideas to the table and a different view, right? So the important thing is to join up together and look at how you can actually work together to increase exports. And let me tell you, that's the only way it can be done, because it has to be done locally. Unfortunately, yes, the project is coming to an end, but I am available for the next couple of months on email, where you can actually, if there are products that's not on the toolkit, please contact me and say, Mary, you know, we've got an exporter who wants to export bananas. It's not on the list. Please, can you assist us in finding what the requirements are in South Africa? And I'm happy to do that. So if there's any query you'll have in the next few months while I'm still contracted with the USA Trade Up, I'm happy to help directly, or you can come via Bolisile, or I think there's a new country rep coming in. But as long as we have some sort of communication, and you can only do that by asking, and I am offering my services, so please use it. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question and your query.
Okay, thank you so much, Mary. It's just a saddening thing that the US Trade Up is closing shop in September. We are just getting warmed up, and we are seeing things that maybe if we jumped on the bandwagon maybe 2 years ago, would have had achieved. So now we in cognizance of the time, we'll move on to the next item, the brief on tracking the usage of the regional cross-border trade toolkit. I believe this will be presented by Marina Bizabani, who's the country representative of Lesotho. She is she does the economic development, strategy, investment, and trade promotion. I think we will greatly benefit from the next session.
Sorry, Mr. Ginenza, it's not exactly Marina is going to present that. She's going to be presenting the closing remarks. But before that, I will be presenting the usage tracker.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just share my screen, and then, you know, I can finish that off quickly, and then we can hand over to Marina.
Okay. Thanks, Mary.
My apologies, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, participants, for presenting, for working on the assignment, and for attending the workshop. The idea behind the toolkit was to give you a tool and skills that you could use for exporting and skills that you can actually use and pass on to others. You know, all the information that you need, well, most of it actually is on the toolkit itself. It's just about getting it distributed to other people. It is online. The videos that you saw are online on the USA Trade Hub website, and you can always contact your country rep or Bolisile, and they will be able to assist you with getting you the documents or, you know, sending you the link for the videos. So what we've done is we've created an Excel sheet for all the participants that you can use, because we need to know now, has the toolkit been useful? And if it has, you know, let us know how it has been useful. If it hasn't been useful and if it doesn't have the information that you want, also, please let us know. So how you complete it is basically you put in your country. Obviously, we're dealing with about 8 exporting countries, so Eswatini is one of them. Your name, the organization you're part of, your email address, your telephone number, and we're basically looking at, has it helped you, your company, or has it helped somebody else that you've assisted? So if you can just put in the date, the company name, if it is a registered company. If not, that's okay. You can just say it's not a registered company. The name of the contact person, their gender, this is just for stats purposes, email address, telephone, the product that they're looking to export, and any feedback on whether or not the toolkit assisted with that. It's not a very hard Excel sheet, and we're basically just looking at how much the toolkit is being used. And we really just want you to track it over the next month or so. So we will be setting up time when we will have another session with you in March. But in the meantime, I am available to be contacted. If you have any queries or if there's any companies that you need to assist, I am available. So if you can just keep track of who you're helping in the next month or so, that would be really useful for us. And then we know, you know, if there's anything else that we may need to implement or change, or, you know, if there's additional training that's needed, whatever your request is from there, please, you know, contact the local office, USA Trade Hub office, and let them know, you know, how they can help you. So I don't know if there's any questions on the usage tracker from your side.
Thank you, Mary. I think we've got Boli this side who will help with that. But I think everybody is comfortable from this side. Even from the other guys, I think I don't see a hand from the guys online. Yeah, we're going to do it. So,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, we're moving along nicely with our program. Evaluation, I think evaluation is online. Please, good people, remember everyone, do an evaluation for day 2.
I think there is an evaluation to be done physically for those who are present there. I'm not 100% sure on that. But before you go to the closing remarks, I just want to say thank you to all the participants for attending and for completing this workshop. And you'll be receiving your certificates later or online for those who have attended online. So thank you very much. And please do contact me if you have any queries or any questions that I can help you with.
Thank you so much, Mary. I think having you was quite helpful and insightful, and Yeah, we've gained a lot over the past 2 days. So at this moment, it's time to invite the country rep of Lesotho to give to us the closing remarks. So she's Marina Bizabani. As you see, she is a trade and investment professional. So over 20 years experience. We are amongst greatness, which we will hope to impact from her knowledge. So she has got quite experience, especially in Lesotho. I see CV is quite rich. So at the moment, we'll invite her to give us the closing remarks for this workshop. Over to you, Marina.
Thank you very much to the program director. Let me really take this opportunity to thank everyone for their participation. Thank you for that kind introduction as well. I think it's been a very fruitful and engaging 2 days, you know. All our partners, program director, would like to say thank you very much, Mary Gander, for your guidance and for your insightful presentations. Would like to say thank you to you, thank you to all our participants, and including our online participants as well, and groups, and for their very good thought through presentations and engagements. I should congratulate you for taking this training of trainers workshop on the cross-border toolkit. And I really trust that it will be utilized to empower exporters in Eswatini to increase their ease of preparation for and exporting their products into the South African market. I also like the element of networks that Mary alluded to earlier. Please do go ahead and nurture those networks and relationships that will prove to be very, very helpful as we continue with increasing our export competitiveness. From our end as USA Trade Hub, we will make the workshop recording available on our web portal. They were projected here just now, where you can find most of our resources that are also related to cross-border export. I'm sure my colleague will show the next slide that will have the portal, that will highlight the portal to you so that you can see where you can access the recording. They will do that shortly. And also you can reach out to your local office there, our USA Trade and Investment Hub office there. Bulisile is there. You've been working with Bulisile throughout preparations and throughout this training of trainers. You have Tammy there, who's the portfolio manager for Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, and Angola. He's accessible because he's based in Eswatini, and very soon you will have a country representative there that you can reach out to. We will also maybe project if the person who's projecting the slides can, there's the portal, www.satihub.com. This is what I was referring to when I said you can get access to the recording of the workshop on there. And then you'll also have lots of resources there on export competitiveness for your consumption. And you can always, after consuming that materials, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our offices in Eswatini, and we can provide the clarification that is required. And maybe in closing, let me also just whet your appetite on some of our upcoming events. We have a similar regional cross-border trade toolkit training of trainers workshop in Lesotho as well. So it's coming up on the 8th to 9th of February. We have a similar one as well for Botswana, which will be on the 10th. And then we have an interesting one as well on diversification of markets now on exporting, a webinar on exporting to the United States of America. So as we are growing to export to South Africa, we also have opportunities to export to the United States of America. So we have that coming up. Save the dates, please, and we will send invitations closer to the time so that you can prepare. With these short remarks, let me say thank you to everyone once again. I don't know if Bulisile has some announcements in terms of refreshments, or if it's something that she will do there with those that are present physical at the venue. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And congratulations.
Thank you very much to everyone for your cooperation. You made my job very easy. I think Ulisile, in terms of refreshment, we'll just whisper to each other this side so that the guys who are online are encouraged to attend another one. Yes. So thank you, everyone. It's been quite insightful. I think at the moment, I'll take this opportunity to officially call a close to this session. Thank you, everyone, and God bless. I've just getting this announcement about certificates that will be presented, and those who are online, I think they will get theirs online, which is very good, because you have to show your boss at work that I attended and this is the result. And it also helps with your CV that you did this. You are not just a novice, now you are quite a professional. So guys, brace yourself for certificates. Boli, are we doing the presentation?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
I think as you all remember and all would know, the certificate, as indicated in the assignment, it was for those who participate and those who presented the assignment. So I saw those who did not present and those who presented. Is it okay if we go along that line? Are you sure? All right, that's fine. We'll just, for the sake of the records as well, we'll be taking some pictures. We'll start with the moderator. Oh, no, they've got the one. Oh. Yeah, for the sake of the records. Okay. All right, thank you. We'll start with the moderator who did a very wonderful job. Can you give him a round of applause? Mr. Kininza, thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you. That's just, yes. Thank you. We have Miss Nombusom Geza. Please come through, ma'am. Thank you very much. Oh, maybe we should be taking out the masks. But nonetheless, Ms. Zodwa Mkabela. Congratulations, ma'am. We have Mr. Sihle Ngabinze. Congratulations, Mr. Ngabinze. Thank you. Ms. Sibongle Dlamini. Congratulations. Congratulations. Ms. Tobile Dlamini. It's a miss with an MS. Congratulations, ma'am. Because I'm hearing a lot of misses. Mr. Sibusiso Nisi. Congratulations, Mr. Nisi. Thank you. We have Ms. Tina Five, who is not here with us at the moment. Mr. Mpendelo Mazia, help us stand there, please. Yes. Can you see us? Congratulations, Mr. Mazia. Is it pressing? It's not pressing. Please help out. Just in case you missed it. Okay, thank you. Ms. Tandega Dlamini, please come through. Congratulations. Mr. Nicholas Chocho, who is not here with us. And lastly, yeah. Thank you very much. May we then have just a group photo here, if you all come here, just in front of the cameras. Just one group photo, and that will be it for the day. Please bring your certificates along, just your certificates along.
Thank you, guys. Travel safe. And may the good Lord bless our food. In Jesus' name, amen. Sure.